this today.
Good.
Couldn't get the time to get there.
It's all
We're
good.
live. How we doing today, Mr. Tony?
All right.
You seem a little down lately.
Damn, is it really that apparent?
It is.
It's the grind. It's just getting to me. So.
Is it? I feel you. Well, at least it's a Friday.
Yeah. Not necessarily down. Just want to shut myself in, kind of keep to myself. Like it's that work grind puts you in the hole, kind of.
I feel you. That's what this week was a doozy.
Yeah.
We definitely talked about that yesterday. But the gym, I know you went to the gym, and like for me today, this past week, in terms of like what you're saying, the grind, I felt like I was like a teenage girl going through my period. Because like honestly, from the time I woke up this morning, and like just about every day was like this, from the time I woke up till now, I probably went through like 5 or 6 different mood swings of like, fuck this, I don't want to do anything, I just want to sleep, to like, let's get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's definitely got to be. I don't know if you buy into that seasonality, like
Sad.
sad.
It's like seasonal.
Yeah, not even sadness. Like, I mean, it's
Well,
just
no,
a
no.
lot of emotions, right?
SAD is like it's an acronym for seasonal.
Oh,
affective
yes, that's
disorder.
right. Yeah. So, I mean, I usually don't, buy into those kinds of theories and stuff, but it's really hard to ignore it, especially it seems like, I don't know if it's just in front of your face a little bit more often, but
I mean, it's definitely not easy.
it's something I realize in the fall and winter, especially I guess around what the time changes and whatnot.
Yeah, I think it's hard, like especially over the past 2 weeks, because you had daylight savings time, so that screws you up. All of a sudden, it's like 5 o'clock, and you're like, "What? It's night." It's not easy being in the city, at least
Yeah.
for me. I don't think you're a city person either.
I could take it or leave it, honestly. I mean, there's times where I love being in it and other times where I just need the fresh air to breathe and some woods to walk through or something like that.
Yeah. And then the past like week, it's just been raining too, pretty much.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think on top of that, it's, we kind of at Drexel, you kind of go through 3 weeks of midterms almost, so
Yeah, you do.
I think it's a lot of that shit. Like everything just catches up, it seems like.
Yeah, it does. At least it's the weekend. You got a weekend
Yeah.
to yourself. The girls away.
Yeah, and we got, I mean, the gym always helps. I was grinding away on my work for a little bit, and then I definitely started to realize I was feeling that whatever it was, where I just wanted to shut everything out, and I decided it was time to stop with the work right now and hit the gym for a little bit.
Yeah, that was huge, because today I went through like I was like a girl on her period. Like
Yeah.
today I just had like 5 different moods. Just
What's that like? What do you think that's really like, being a girl on a
that
period?
I
Like,
should note that like I have no idea what it's like to be a girl on a period, but I would say if you looked at my just mental state throughout the day and could somehow graph it and
Yeah.
put it next to a mental, I don't even know, like how a girl feels when she's on her period, it would probably pretty close. Because like I woke up just ready to kill, and it just turned into like, it's raining, this work sucks, to
Yeah.
like, yeah, let's get it. And then it turned back into like, oh, fuck. And like you said, though, like a big thing for me is the gym. Like I had like, before I hit the gym today, it was just like, this sucks. Everything sucks. And I hit the gym, and now it's like back to normal.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate thing.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things. I mean, we kind of talked about it before a couple of weeks ago, and it seems like we were on the same page with it. There's kind of a couple things you can do to, get yourself out of that funk.
Yeah.
The gym being one of them, but I guess having that routine a little bit, and and then just having the mental ability to pull yourself out of that funk and switch the path you're on.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, because it's easy when you're in funks to just like just have a bleak outlook and just
Yeah.
be like, this is how it is. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like I was saying it's just a roller coaster, like you're gonna be low and eventually you're gonna come back up and
Yeah.
it evens out and you're high and you're low. But I was like, I don't get how people don't exercise, like
Yeah.
in terms of my like me personally, because from my personal experience, like I said, almost I don't think, and I've been like keeping tally, and since I've been keeping tally, I don't think there's been a single workout where I didn't feel good, like mentally and physically after it, like
Yeah.
lifted. You just get those endorphins going, those chemicals, whatever's going on, and you just feel good. And then I think about it, I'm like, wow, like some people haven't exercised since like high school gym.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I've definitely I've been both ways because like growing up, I was very active and did a lot of sports. And after that, I was in the gym for a while, and then just being at Drexel, you lose track of time, and if you don't have a routine, then school will take over everything. Like
Hits you like a wall.
so, there was a while, like a couple years, where I was not active at all, and I put on a lot of weight. Especially what was a lot of weight for me. I never had a lot of body fat on me, and just feeling yourself after you walk a couple blocks and being out of breath, like you say to yourself, what the hell's going on? Like and to be fair, I was I was doing everything wrong. I was smoking cigarettes too and all that bad shit. So yeah, there was a point where I definitely said, like, I gotta do something. I gotta get active again.
Yeah, it's I don't know, like I guess just everyone's different, but like what I've, and it could be my life experience and just what I've been through with it, but like I do it and I literally am just like, people don't ever do this. Like it's not like they'll do
Yeah.
it once a week, or sorry, it's not like they'll do it once a week. Like they never do it. And like you said, like I'm sure there's times they'll go up a flight of stairs and they're out of breath, but they probably don't like think about it. Like
Right. They're not even thinking about it. And that's the part that boggles my mind too, is when I was feeling that shortness of breath, I was like, how does anybody go beyond where I was at? Like, and
yeah,
put on another 20 or 30 pounds. How do they survive?
and I would imagine like in the state you were in, most people would have looked at you and said you were healthy. Like looked and be like, yeah, you're a
Right.
healthy average kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're thinking like,
And it's just, I guess it's that privilege of growing up with an active lifestyle, and
I think that's probably like in terms of life experience why I look at it the way I do and most people don't, because ever since I can remember, my parents had me in sports and I was
Right.
doing something. I was active. Like they put me in just about every sport as a kid. So that's probably a big factor in it, but that's probably like the big, and two, I think a lot, if people don't, it's like if you're smoking cigarettes, I've never been on cigarettes or got addicted to cigarettes, but like people talk about how great you feel when you get off of them. But if you never get off or you never have something to compare to, then like say you're smoking cigarettes and that puts you at like, maybe instead of 100% mental and physical capacity, it bumps you down to like 80. But in your head, you're at 80 capacity, but to you that's 100.
Right.
So I think what happens with a lot of people is they don't get that contrast to go like, oh, this is a thing. Like if you never quit smoking, you'll never
that
realize
shitty feeling is just normal to them.
Yep. So like you take your average and bring it down, and I think that's what it is. Like I know when I'm feeling bad, I know there's like a certain feeling when it's like I gotta get out. I just gotta go. You know what I mean? Like just go bang some weights or just go for a run or something. But like I think what it is a lot of people don't have that comparison of, oh, I'm feeling shitty and it's because I'm not exercising, because they don't exercise. And that's this book I'm reading, we've talked a lot, like we've gone pretty deep over the last couple of weeks, and I think he's touched just about on every issue we have. And it's called The Evolving Self. and I'm not even gonna try to pronounce the guy's name,
Hmm.
but essentially where I'm at, I'm just started the book, and he's just talking about um, the idea of the book is to like it's the evolving self of psychology for the third millennium, and essentially he's saying like we're at this crazy point in history, the craziest it's ever been, and everything is so drastically different than it even was like 20 years ago,
Yeah.
that we need to start looking and going like, okay, we're like we came from the muck as primates and evolved to this point, and essentially like just the majority, like what I've gone through so far is he's giving a backstory of how humans got to where we are and why we behave what we do. And one of the things he talks about is like exercise. When you like thousands of years ago, when we were on the plains in Africa or whatever it was, like every day you woke up, you're moving.
Right.
You don't sit. They didn't have computers to sit in front. Didn't have this. Didn't have that. Like their goal was survival. They were either probably running from something, or running to kill something, or something was trying to kill them. So like he mentions how that's ingrained in, like that was ingrained in us, and now you have society. Fast forward to now, and people would just sit at desks all day, sit in their car on the way home,
Yeah.
and then sit in front of the TV, and then it's time to go to bed. So he argues that I guess you can consider it a fact, but it's a pretty strong argument that we, in our genetics, it was just ingrained in us that we like move, because movement meant survival. If we stayed still, we died. And essentially just about everything he goes through is how certain human behaviors, why they are, because like back our ancestors did help them survive. So
Right.
things like now, when we can sit around and food is right in the fridge, or everything we need is right here, we don't need to move. But the coding in us is still telling us like we need to move. But I believe in that. I guess it's a theory, but to me, like,
Yeah.
it makes pretty damn good sense. So I think that's what like a lot of it is too. Like people won't think like that. It's just like you're designed, like, believe it or not, you got where you are because the strong survive and evolution is a thing. So like that exercise, your body still needs to do it. Essentially he's saying we haven't adapted yet to the conditions that we're living in now.
Right.
We're living with the instructions for how we lived 1,000 years ago, but we're living.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's a really, really good book so far, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the author's name because it honestly looks
I can't
like
even see it from there. It just looks really long.
it just it's just a bunch of letters. But The Evolving Self, it's a great book, and he touches on a lot of things, just of like how we evolved and stuff, and it's really great. And essentially he's what he's trying to do is
His first name is in his last name. That's how long it is. Wow.
The guy is really smart, and he has some really good insights.
Yeah. I think that, you know, evolution is such a crazy idea in itself, like, you know, and the brain was kind of part of our biological evolution to help us survive, and when you consider that, and now how technology leads us in our evolution, like, I mean, we get motion sickness because we're used to walking and running at our fastest speed for 6,000 years, whatever it is, you know, and, you know, in the last 100 years or whatever, we've been able to go 35 miles an hour at least, you know. Cars have certainly been around that long now, and our brain still hasn't been able to adapt to that. Some people's brains, you know, so because of that lack in evolution, right? So,
yeah, it takes time. It takes generations after generations.
So now, I mean, we're at a point where technology is literally outpacing our biological evolution. And if you think of humanity, it's hard to believe we're in a place where technology isn't going to change us and evolve us, and we won't be integrated with these machines and computers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, simply because our bodies won't be able to adapt fast enough and evolve along with the technology.
Yeah. Yeah, and reading that, you get an idea. I've talked on here before of how, like, when I look at things in terms of like health and my mind and my body and certain things, I try to always consider like our human evolution, what we came from and what made us get here. And reading, like, I probably do it more than the average person in terms of thinking about that, but reading that, it makes me realize how much stuff I didn't even think about is impacted by our evolution. And essentially, it's things that helped us, a lot of things that helped us survive those thousands and the millennia ago are like they flipped and they're hurting us now. Like the reason we like sugar and we have such a craving for sugar is because that was the sweetest thing that you'd be able to find. That was the most like calorie dense carbohydrates and sugars and fruit. Fruit was the sweetest thing you could find back then. Now you go to the store and you can get like a cake and but like that's why we crave it, because back then that those calories and that fuel was like that was the pinnacle,
Right.
something like that. And he goes into a bunch of other examples about stuff that like, oh, back then it worked, it was like that, but now like it's hurting us. He also talks about like males and masculinity and femininity. um Back then, like, male's job, like, everyone's job is to pass on like your genes. That's the goal. That's what lies at the root of all of us. And like you were masculine because the most masculine males got the females and they passed on their genes.
Right.
But now everyone, like, toxic masculinity is a thing.
Right. That's true. I never thought of that issue that way. How yeah, I mean, that was kind of an essential part of life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that helped us survive and carried our generations onward and onward and onward.
Yeah, the more
And now all of a sudden we don't need that anymore. So we kind of shit all over that, right?
yeah, and it's crazy. Like I there's so many things he goes into that it's like not just little things too. Like toxic masculinity is like a huge movement, and trying to eliminate that from society is a huge thing. Like it, that's one of like the social justice warriors. Like that's an argument for them. And like when you look at it like that, it's like, wait a second, our DNA, our instructions are telling us to be that way, but you have like
Right.
people on Twitter and Instagram and like all over putting it down, and it's like, whoa, like we're gonna take time to evolve. Like I like yeah, today in 2018, it may not be the best thing, but you have to see it from also you
It
have
needs
to
time for the correction and to adjust.
yeah, so like you need to be more forgiving of that. Like maybe toxic masculinity is a net bad thing now in 2018,
Right.
but in millennia ago it was a net good thing because that's how I passed on my genes.
Right. And I think that's like so many things. Like we need to be able to talk about it, and talk about problems and find resolutions to them rather than just trying to eliminate everything. And like it creates all this like tension and disagreeableness.
That's part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast is because like what you don't do this, like you don't just ever sit down and talk to somebody, and just like you and me, and that this is all we planned on doing is talking.
Right.
Whatever comes up, but like you can't, when that's the goal, you can't say something and I just go, no, you're wrong, and like we move on. No, that's like we're here to talk and talk it out, but like people, like you're saying, they don't want to do that.
Right.
Like we were talking about the Roseanne Barr thing. Like
Right.
they just wanted to kick her, like push her off to the side as quick as they could without hearing any of the story. And when you do hear the story, it's like, yeah, like she has serious mental issues
Right.
that needs to be addressed. But like people don't want to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, part of that's human too. It's easy to, just say what you want to say and then move on to the next thing. Like a lot of us do that, I guess. You know, it's something that's hard. It takes a lot of time to like really understand somebody else's point of view and be okay with that. Like, I mean, a lot of people hear different opinions and that just makes them uncomfortable to know that somebody else is out there with a different point of view than theirs, you know?
Yeah. And the scary thing is when a lot of people, like, they hold on to beliefs like religion.
Right.
And you can't change that. Where the way a belief or an idea or something you hold as true, the way it should work is it should constantly be challenged, because that's how you strengthen it. If I believe in something and you come with a counter argument, the wrong thing to do is just, no, you're wrong. Like, the right thing is to hear your argument, and one of two things happens. I either rebuttal and come with a counter argument that beats yours, or your argument finds holes in mine and I rethink mine.
Right.
And you move on from that. That's how it should work, where people don't hold ideas as that malleable. To them, it's like it's this concrete.
Right.
That's essentially that's what religions are.
Right.
And that's another thing he talks about in the book, where religion has been a way of helping us understand the world. Like, humans are constantly, we need to we want to understand the world we're in, and we want to have an idea. Otherwise, we're just like lost.
Right. It was kind of their first crack at science, right?
Exactly.
Finding cause and, you know, why things happen. And
yeah, and he kind of relates it to science in a way, because, like, so back then it was just like, if it rained for 40 days, you had no better, their knowledge was so limited compared to how much we have now. To them, it, like, how are you going to explain it besides something you can't see? Like God. But now it's like science is almost a religion, in the sense science helps us explain things.
Right.
And like science are your beliefs now. So like if it rains for 40 days, you could probably point, you know.
And I mean, it was, I think part of it was, you know, so long ago, it was easy to just see stars all the time. And that's often where they were looking. They were always looking in the stars, or even in the sky during the day, right? To keep their time, right? Keep their seasons. It was a calendar to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they could predict weather a little bit easier like that. So I think after they started looking up in the skies and seeing that some answers lied there, they figured all the answers must lie there. And that's where their God and their religion is coming from. And their gods live in the stars or in the planets and whatnot. And so I think you know, that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah. I mean, you think you can't even, you can get, like, you can try, but if you, like, think of putting yourself in the mindset of someone who you know, you're living in a cave, and you all you're doing every day is fighting for survival, and all of a sudden a hurricane comes. Like, how are you even going to begin to explain that? You know what I mean? And that's essentially what they tried to do with religion. And now he talks about, so that was Zen, and then he extrapolates it to now, and he goes, so we're kind of losing religion in a classic sense, but now people they still have religions in sense of, like, you know, social justice warriors, or however you hold things. So like it's almost like we still need something that we hold as an absolute truth no matter what. But like that's so counterproductive for us as a civilization. Like if we want, and that's what he's saying. That's why it's called psychology for the third millennium, because we're in the second now, and he's saying, like, essentially he's saying, if we want to get there, here's how we need to start looking at things, and here's how we're doing it now. And it's pretty crazy when you think it's like, yeah, like a lot of people, there's a lot of people when it, of course I'm drawing a blank, but like there's any number of active social movements that you're just like, you can look at and just be like, what? There's no logic behind that, but thousands and thousands and thousands of people will support it.
Right.
And it's like it could easily be rebuted with science, but they still deny that. And that's when it comes back to like, oh, they're not willing to take in any other input.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, I would imagine some of that stuff, you know, people are feeling a certain way in their life, and one of these movements sparks them and gives them either a voice or, you know, some kind of hope to resolve what that is that's bothering them in life. And so they you know, they like to jump on the bandwagon and feel like they're part of, you know, other people who feel like them. And you know, that's an investment, and if it's that group thinking thing too, you know. And then I think all of that, it's kind of hard to say like, well, you guys are just wrong. You know, they, you know, people don't like to hear that they're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's, if, I mean, I could imagine myself if I was on one of these movements, you know, and I found people who I thought were similar to me or had similar beliefs, and then, you know, all of a sudden there's this science that says, well, actually, you guys are wrong. I mean, I invested a lot of time into that, and it helped me and got me through what I had to get through in life, you know, so I don't want to discredit any of that.
Yeah.
You know, because it kind of means you're discrediting yourself, and it might put you back in that place that you were in before.
Yeah. I kind of see what you're saying. It's like, and there's tangible, there's tangible positive outcomes of people that believe in religion. Like there's certain studies that show belief, like holding an ideal that that is part of your identity. There's something that's positive about that. It helps you with your mindset. It helps with a bunch of different things. So I see what you're saying in a sense. I never even thought about it that way. Almost like we all have to identify with something.
I guess. I mean, yeah, and that's a funny thing, because I hate to identify with anything. I feel like it puts me in a category or a box, and I just hate that feeling.
Not.
But I mean,
I guess identify might have been the wrong wording, but
yeah, it's just like, I mean, especially like when you think about it, a lot of these movements are, you know, it's a lot of young people, and you know, even when you look at college kids, there's a lot of young people who have no idea what the fuck they want to do with their life, you know. And so you just have all these 20-somethings, even like 30-somethings walking around out there. Think about the ones who graduated college, 30-somethings, and still don't know what they want to do with their lives, you know? They need to find a cause for why they're living, and these movements help provide that for them, you know? Like, let me go sit in on Wall Street, because that's what I went to school for 4 years for.
Yeah, that's essentially what, like, that's another one of the things he says is like, we have the natural state of nature is entropy, which means which is a measure of disorder, and nature always wants to tend to disorder. So essentially, working towards order is an uphill battle.
Right.
So, like, if you don't try to, essentially, I guess, extrapolating it to these movements is like that gives you an ideal to get behind and stand behind, gives you some sort of order. Whereas if you're just wandering meanderously and taking in this guy's opinion, this guy's, this woman, you know, what this person thinks, that's a state of like just disorder.
Or yeah.
But
I mean, even if you're young, and you know, if what you're saying is nature has this entropy in it, you know, we're still really young, you know. Like, I mean, I feel like even 100 years, you know, if we live to be 100 years old, you have to say that's young, relatively speaking. I
it's
mean,
nothing.
that's not
That's
enough
nothing.
time to like figure this shit out. So
No.
when you're 20, you know, maybe the natural thing to do is like be this little rebel, you know, and just go against the man, whether it's a good system or not. You know, I feel like everyone's gonna outlash a little bit. You know, go against the order of the way things are already. I mean,
Interesting.
when I look back at myself, you know, I think I just tended to make things a lot harder for myself than they had to be. You know, just and maybe because that's that natural entropy you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, like kind of just like look, I wish I would have reread that section so I could delve into it deeper. Because I don't want to just start babbling stuff, that he didn't say. But it's just an interesting. There's so many things that play into it too. I think one of the most interesting things so far in the book. He goes into a paragraph about passing on the right ideals, right? Passing on the ideals and the things that are going to help us survive as best we can, for the third millennium. And he talks about, he's like, words are so impactful and emotions are so impactful. And like we live with emotions, and a lot of people chase material wealth. And he goes into a paragraph about there could be a dad, like say I'm a dad and you're my son, and the dad is trying to describe to his son like why his wedding day was the one of the best days of his life. And it, like he says, then from the dad's point of view, in the dad's head, like essentially he's saying there's a huge flaw in like I'm trying to get an idea and relay it to you. So the idea in my head means one thing, and then when I put it into words, that distorts it.
Right.
And then you have to interpret it through the filter that is your brain, which distorts it even more. So he talks about there's a dad who's trying to, tell his son how much he loves his mother and why his wedding day was the best day of his life because he got to marry the love of his life. But he describes to the kid, it's such a strong emotion that he's saying, yeah, it was awesome. There was flowers everywhere, and all your uncles and cousins were there, and he had the best food, and it was a beautiful day, the perfect weather, the perfect venue. Where what the dad is really trying to say is, I got to marry, and I got to bond with this person that I love so much. But it's hard to say that because a lot of times we don't like to delve into emotions. Like that's a thing that people don't want to do. So now the kid takes that and he hears like, oh, this day was awesome because bouquets and people
Right.
and perfect weather and the perfect venue. Whereas opposed to the kid needs to hear that like, me and this woman connected and like we have this bond.
Right.
And like that's so now the ideal that gets passed on is a material
for a wedding,
instead of like an emotional connection. And I thought that was just like a crazy impactful passage because it's like, wow, it just shows like, yeah, when like I could see a little kid looking back like, yeah, I remember my dad telling me about his wedding and this and that, and like now he's gonna hold those ideals, whereas opposed to a wedding, it doesn't matter if you're holding it in the pouring rain, in the mud, and there's one witness. Like that should still be just as good as another wedding held at some amazing venue.
Yeah.
So like that in that sense, like how we talk about ideas and how we pass on information, and like just how we need to choose our words, like that's a big part of it. And it's crazy when you think of it like that. It's like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, that is crazy.
So now like that ideal is the one that gets passed on.
Right. And why do you think that is? I mean, is that like, you think that's, I mean, what other examples do you think there are of that? Because, I mean, that sounds to me like that was like emotion getting lost in it, or right. And if that's because like males and masculinity is like to not show emotion, but when you think about it, I mean, weddings are pretty materialistic for women too, and I'm not sure that it's always
Oh,
about
even more
like this,
so. I would
like,
argue
bond,
even,
right? Yeah,
someone just probably flipped out at me saying that, but I would probably argue they're more material for the majority of women. Yeah.
right. So, and I mean, like if you're gonna go with stereotypes and all that, you know, like women are supposed to be able to share their emotions more than men, you know. So I wonder why weddings would be more material for women when you would expect that their mom is telling them the emotional details about it rather than the material.
So I think he kind of uses it as an anecdote to say that we, like, naturally displaying emotion isn't easy or isn't comfortable. It's not comfortable. Like we all know how that feels.
Yeah.
Like telling someone how you truly deeply feel about something, whether it's them or whether it's something else, is like, it's tough. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
could think of an example, talking deeply and sincerely because you're opening up, like you're making yourself vulnerable, and I think that is the point he's trying to get by. Well, you could extrapolate that to a bunch of different examples where you like you have a guard up, so instead like, oh, like saying something might make me seem weak, and I think too part of it is just subconscious. I think if you're not in touch with your emotions, like subconsciously it could have been the best day because you married the love of your life, but if you're not in touch with yourself, if you're not in tune with that, then how are you going to know that?
Right.
Your brain's just going to tell you it was the best day because of all this other stuff.
Yeah. And I think maybe part of the problem is like even if we were even if we were gonna be more open to sharing our emotions, it's hard to put that into words still. You know?
Exactly.
And so it's almost easier to say, well, I can't tell you how much I love her, so let me just buy a bunch of shit and show you how much I love her. Like let me equate it that way.
Yeah. I think that essentially is what he's trying to get by. Like emotion is, words are so clunky and ineffective at doing what they're supposed to do that maybe sometimes they're like there's no way you could possibly convey what you're trying to say
Right.
without dumbing it down, because emotions are so powerful and impactful that like how do you even begin to try to, like, it automatically gets material when you have to use words.
Yeah, it's hard to explain any intuitive thought almost, like, and I mean, I kind of had this thing sometimes, you know, where I think it was especially after I took like a chemistry and a psychology course and whatnot, and I mean, you really almost start to feel like your body is separate from your mind, like totally separate sometimes. I mean, to the point where, I mean, we're just a bunch of chain reactions that's happening in our body, you know? And so it comes down to this point to me where I feel like I'm a brain on a, you know,
Meat
spinal
sack.
cord, right? And that, like, it's just carrying me around, you know, like everything else is just there. Like,
Yeah.
the only thing that really matters for life, I guess, is your brain. That's where your consciousness lives.
Essentially it's genetic makeup.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, and that kind of, you know, you're just a brain, like, that developed a spinal cord that also developed, you know, fingers because they help you put food in your mouth, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is to help the brain survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
and so like we just grew this way with like a dick and balls and the other sex grew a vagina, and that way we could like nut and
Yeah.
pass our thoughts on to. That's what I feel like we really are. It's just a bunch of ideas floating around. Like,
Yeah. He talks about how, yeah, that's exactly it. We are completely different and unique than any other species because we have a consciousness and we're sentient beings. And we can think, and we can think about our thoughts.
right.
And like the second most, like the two passages so far that I've taken away strongest for the book were the one about the father. And then in talking about self, he says, we evolved, and just like any other animal, deer, raccoons, or you name it, they're driven by biological needs, and that's all that they let drive their vehicle, right? A deer is just motivated to eat and to reproduce and survive, and that's it. Like, they don't have consciousness, they don't think. And then he said, humans at some point, we developed this consciousness. So now, instead of just making instead of just letting our genes survive, like instead of me wanting to have another Jared in this world to outlive me, Jared 2, and then he has a Jared 3 because that keeps passing on me. He's saying now on top of that, we have a consciousness that we like, that it is in itself this own thing that wants to be passed on. So it's almost like you want to pass on the same ideal. Like, you hear that all the time. You want to pass on the same ideals to your kid,
Right.
because you want your ideals to survive, and you want the way you live, not only physically but mentally, to survive and be passed on.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's like, holy, I don't know, that, like, when you think of it that way, it's like,
It's weird, man.
that's
It's just weird.
it's just very weird.
Like, and I mean, like, you could definitely trip yourself out over all this own stuff. Like, I mean, because you try to like take that, and I always feel like that blends into somehow like simulation theory, and blends into evolution, blends into religion. Like, there's like this link between them all where they're clearly very different things, but there's like a small piece that connects each of them to the other. Like,
How so?
well, I mean, like, this whole thing. Well, I feel like even, some people might feel like simulation theory like disproves religion or gods and stuff, and I mean, I don't think it even necessarily has to do that. If we were going to be living in a simulation, that we are the replicas of a different kind of civilization that created us, I mean, didn't somebody create them too? And somebody would have created them as well. Or even if we're just, even if we are literally digital, like, does that mean there isn't an external world with a God? Like, it's just not our God, maybe. Like, it doesn't, just because this universe that we live in is simulated, doesn't necessarily mean there's not another universe where things aren't simulated and where there isn't a God or not a God.
I see what you're saying. So, like, maybe we're just like at the bottom of the pyramid.
Maybe the base civilization, right? The one that did not, all right. So I guess I should start back with, like, if we're creating all these computers, right, to eventually be humanized like us, and we can, create these video games with GTA worlds and stuff like that, essentially we would get to this point where we replicated our world and put digitalized people in it. Right? So, and the only thing we're going to be able to do is, like, pass on our ideas. Like, right? So we would give them, like, we would have to give those people a god or a religion or something to look up to, right? Because otherwise they're going to be looking cluelessly for where they came from and whatnot. And so maybe our idea of God is just from our creators.
So it sounds like
it's their idea of God.
It sounds like you believe heavily in simulation theory.
I don't know that.
Or are you just doing a thought experiment?
Yeah, just kind of doing a thought experiment. But I wouldn't say, like, I mean, for me, like, I honestly think anything is possible. Like,
oh, that's, yeah.
So I buy into all of it, really.
One of my favorite things about simulation theory is there's two possibilities. One is that we're in one, and one's that we're not, right? There's no way of knowing if we are.
Right, unless we, I mean, how
do you, yeah, but how do you know? Like, okay, let's say we think we're like, oh yeah, we're in a simulation. How do we not know that was built into it?
Right.
So, like, that's, to me, one of the most, because I watched a debate on it with really smart people. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson was in, and they had like 3 other physicists and psychologists, and that the debate was, are we in a simulation? And the one guy was like, there's 2 possibilities, we are or we aren't, and if we are, there's no way for us to know.
Well, unless you had like the blue pill and the red pill.
Yeah, but like you can always go, yeah, but was that built into the simulation? You can always say that, right?
Right.
You can always say that.
I guess you can always.
You could have an experience tonight. You could go to bed and you could do the Matrix. You could have maybe not bed, because that you would literally have a dream. But let's say you stumble like a movie into some old, like, I don't know, some shop that's just old and beat up and looks like there's no one in there, and there's one person working at the counter. And he pulls a Morpheus, and he says, "I'm gonna take you. We're gonna go. You go back through the portal. What's the weather like today? It's always cloudy outside. No need for an umbrella. Like, there's some code. Boom, takes you through, and he puts you in a world that you can't even begin to explain. Right? It's nothing like ours. Like, I could still make that, and then you come back, and he goes, "This is it. Like, we created you guys. This is the original. We created you, let's say you decide to come back and tell me.
Right.
I'm just going to go, well, how do you know that wasn't part of it? Right? Like,
right.
How do you know they just didn't build? So that's why.
But does that mean, like, I mean.
Okay, so what I think
you would know it's a simulation then, right? I
think I see what you're trying to say. You could know. So let's say that was the truth, that you came out. You
would never know what the truth really is.
Yes. You could never know.
You might be sure that you're in a simulation.
So you would be right, but not by accident, but like you would just be right just because it was that way. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Where you could you'd be like, dude, it was legit, I swear. Like, it's a thing and like there's 2 possibilities. It was in the simulation, or it was like the actual creator, but you still couldn't know. So you could be right, but you would be right almost like, I don't know how to put it into words. Like, you would be right, but not because you knew for sure. You would be right just because it's how it was. Right. It's kind of like saying, like, are Zach and Dave our roommates? Like, are they here?
Right.
I'd be like, yeah, I know for sure they're here. They're both in their rooms, right? We go outside and they're both in their rooms. I haven't been out of my room for an hour. So I couldn't know, like, I knew by no fault, by nothing I did. I essentially, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get what you're saying now.
I think I went really deep there.
Yeah. I mean, so what does that mean? What does that mean for when you die then? I mean, that's a really hard question, because you kind of have have an opinion on what happens beforehand. But
Well,
I mean, if you if you were gonna die and
are you saying if you died in a simulation, or what? What do you
no,
mean?
just here, whether this is a simulation or not, like what does it say for us about when we die? Like, I mean, if is our consciousness gonna go on and live into heaven or something? But like, who's to say that's just not another simulation then? All right, I mean,
Yeah, I get. So you're kind of saying like the Christian dies. They did everything right. They followed the Bible. They get into heaven. You're saying there's no way of knowing whether or
how do you
not
know that's
that they're.
heaven.
I don't know.
Like, did you not die then, or like what happened? Like maybe you just got
You leveled up.
you leveled up or something, right? Or got plugged into a new program, or
Yeah. I don't know. You could go on for hours about this. Because, like, if you've seen The Matrix,
yeah.
I don't think I'm going to spoil anything here. But if you haven't seen The Matrix, come on.
Yeah, come on. It's,
He goes, right,
it's
Keanu.
not a lot left to spoil.
It's from 2000. Come on, if you haven't. Actually, I think it's from 1999.
It's definitely from pre-2000.
Then it's 1999,
Yeah.
I believe. But like essentially, you're saying Neo could have just as easily went into another simulation.
I don't know. Did he die?
Well, no, like Morpheus. Remember Morpheus
Right.
blew a red pill.
Oh, yeah.
And he took the pill that helped him see that. So essentially, what you're saying is it could have just been like another
Yeah.
level of the simulation.
Right.
I don't know. That's
I mean, I get freaked out. Like, what is it? Black Mirror did a really good one.
1999 to be exact. The Matrix.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
It was like another simulation thing. It might have been San Junipero, but and they show this thing at the end, like just a large room with like a bunch of computers and like basically microchips, and the microchips is what our consciousness stored on a drive, and they plug it into different places. Or that's the creepy thing to me, is to think that, I mean, well, what did we start out talking by? That like our biological evolution is not going to keep pace with our technological evolution, right? So we will eventually turn ourselves into computers, and right?
To make up for that.
I mean,
lag.
like, what? Yeah, like, what instance is there that we wouldn't? Like, I mean, I think maybe then if we could start changing our DNA or something like that to help us evolve faster. But
That's a pretty good argument.
right, like,
I can't.
I
Why
mean,
wouldn't what? We're so flawed, humans, as
yeah.
a sack of meat, as just another ape.
And so what I was saying before with, like, everything is to keep the brain going, right? I mean, so technically we don't need these thumbs as long as our brains is going. Maybe a machine is better than the parts we have now.
Yeah.
So
Or just like, why don't I take your consciousness, put it in a machine?
and maybe that is the new evolution to us, because our brain is working to develop these technologies. Technically, it's our brain creating these. So it is an extension. This new technology that we're making is an extension of our brain.
It's just it's the second consciousness.
It's external evolution.
Well, that I could argue because it's coming from us.
Right.
Like, if it wasn't for humans, right, to say external evolution would be that factors out of our control put us there. But it couldn't be that because we're the ones that
Yeah.
procured the technology and came up. But it's almost like the second evolution of consciousness, because
Right.
we went from just surviving and fulfilling basic needs, and then we had somewhere in our timeline we had a tick up of like, okay, I can recognize this self and I'm conscious. And now you're saying maybe like the third tick is us like, oh, like we no longer need this. We're just going to all upload into a computer and we will like just be able to survive, somehow figure out how we can survive millennia. And that's like the second
So,
level up.
but let's be fair then. If you know, right, the theory is that we're eventually going to get to that point, and if we can recreate that, it would mean you know, that the things we recreate are going to recreate themselves. And so how can we, like, what are the statistical chances that we're base civilization? Like, we're in base reality.
I have no idea.
You know, so, but I think my argument to that is, if we're getting to this point where we're gonna be able to download our consciousness onto these computers and copy them, or you know,
Upload them.
yeah, upload them so we could live forever. Why do we die?
Exactly. Like that's what I was.
If we're not in base reality, then why do we die?
Interesting.
Maybe that's because, like,
So is that so?
maybe because our consciousness hasn't been able to evolve with technology either. We would not be able to handle the thought of ourselves living forever.
Yeah, I think living forever. Living forever is very flawed too, and I don't think people realize that. Like because we talked about how 100 years is not a long time at all.
Right.
You're living forever.
Yeah.
Like I really feel like when people think, oh, live forever, like they don't think about it this way, but they're thinking like, put a number on it. They might think of like 750 years, right?
Right.
But no. Like you're living forever. Like that gives you, there's no end. So you can if you live forever, you can accomplish everything that there ever is to accomplish.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
And as that follows, then that gives very little meaning. If you can do let's say that doing everything that you could ever do is completing the game, right? Boom, you complete it 100%. It's still forever though.
Yeah.
And that's when that's all right. Boom, Tony, you're granted living forever. You do everything that there ever is to do. You just, Olympic gold medal in swimming, this, that, heroin addict. You do everything. You do everything, right?
Yeah,
You fulfill every end of the spectrum. And then you get to the last thing you do, and then you sit down and you go, now what?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't think people think about oh, I would love to live forever. If you gave me an option, I would probably choose it to live forever or how we have now. I would absolutely choose how we have now, because dying and knowing you're here for a finite amount of time, at least for me, that's your pressure. That's your push to do what like if you have an appointment, you have an hour appointment, you got a lifetime. If you're going to see someone for a doctor and you're only going to be there for an hour, you have to get everything done in that hour. So it's the same thing. Like I know what I want to accomplish, and if I had forever to accomplish it, what would be the point?
Right.
But no, I know I'm going to die. So like at some point, it could be tomorrow, could be in 70 years, but I still know I'm going to die, and that's what the drive is, to get up. Otherwise, why not just stay in bed?
Yeah. I mean, why do we live till we're 100 then?
I think as far as evolution's I
Well, I guess I should say, if we're still on the simulation topic, like,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
why would we program ourselves to live to 100 rather than 200?
We didn't.
Or whoever. Yeah. That's
Just part of the program. It's almost like you use GTA as an example, right?
Right.
No, I guess that's still not a good anecdote for that.
It's really annoying, these
maybe there was
questions, like,
maybe all right, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Whatever system we're running on, right? So the simulation we're in, it's only got so much capacity. And if we kept reproducing and reproducing, that's a lot of consciousness that system would need to hold, right? So
Well,
the creators of the system said, okay, so we'll just kill off information as we go so we can keep up. We have a rate of change that evens out. In equals out. Well, not necessarily now, but maybe they programmed into it the capacity for what it was going to be, and they know, all right, we have to kill people off, otherwise the system's just going to blow and run out of capacity.
right.
So that's my argument for that.
I think too, like, the thought that crossed my mind is that the Matrix comes up with a pretty good answer for all of that, because in the Matrix, like, they still have their biological bodies.
Yes.
And that's just plugged into a computer simulated world.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess when those biological bodies, as they age and slow down and deteriorate and then finally die, so would your simulation life, your surrogate.
Yeah, but then you come back to the argument of the consciousness being uploaded. Once my consciousness is uploaded to my MacBook,
Right.
then I live like then I don't matter.
Right, but then the computer capacity, as you said, there's not.
Well, then
there's
I'll
not
play
enough
devil's
room for all
advocate
this
again.
Consciousness.
Maybe the computer's big enough.
Yeah. So right, I mean, computers are only going to get bigger and bigger. Like, storage gets smaller, like, takes up less space, right?
Mm-hmm. And is able
Holds
to do
more
more
storage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there'd have to be a fuckload of consciousness, like more than there are humans on Earth. Like,
we just went deep,
yeah,
dude. We just went deep. I don't believe. Obviously, you have to have you. I guess you got to form some type of opinion. I just don't believe we're in it's hard for me to believe that we're in a simulation.
yeah. It's definitely. I mean, I go back and forth. Like, there's a lot of. I feel like there's a lot of, like, good arguments to it, but, like, it's just, it feels impossible.
You said you go back and forth, and I literally just went from back to forth because like in this minute right now, because like I guess I would have to have a reason why I don't think
It's just a mind fuck. Like,
it is a mind fuck, because it's like, all right, if I was like I don't believe, so I said I don't believe we're in a simulation. And then I said, I was like, our story, like, I guess my argument was that our story is too unique. But I was like, is it really, though? Could you not come up with, like, just as interesting, if not a more interesting origin and evolution of, like, you know, could you not conceive a equally as interesting and complex, if not more, simulation? And like I probably, like, there's people out there that could come up with stuff. So it's like if you think about us as a story, just someone be like, yeah, so we just had like this nothingness, and then a lot of time went by, not even a lot, but some time goes by, and then boom, And then a little more time goes by, and then, a booger, something starts to form, and then that something forms into something else, and then something to something else, and then you get something that thinks, and then they start thinking about why they think. And we'll add some details in there, and that's the simulation.
I mean, yeah, like,
So when you think about it that way, it's like, are we that special?
yeah, and I mean, like, somebody wouldn't have to necessarily create our entire world and our entire simulation,
You're
like,
absolutely right.
because when you think about it, like, how we think of our origins and the cosmos is like, it is just really or maybe it's part of evolution theory, like everything in the universe is just chaos, like, and randomness, and we were randomly on a rock floating around that was a correct distance away from the sun, and water happened to crash into it and give life, right? So all of that is just starts to create a bunch of this randomness, and like then you get like biological germs and shit, right, that start interacting with each other randomly and start forming these other cells randomly, right? And then
Yeah, and if you had the
eventually you get to mammals who are being random, and they all have their random thoughts, and like and then the randomness we decided to turn into some kind of order. But really that's just we randomly created that order is what I'm trying to say, like.
And if you look at that from a simulation point of view, you could easily just
All you would have to do is hit a bunch of buttons that's doing their own random thing now, and all of a sudden there's a bunch of random alternates.
You just type in an algorithm, or you type in some super complex something, and then you just, all right, run. Yeah. And then the species that created this is just sitting there. And I'll come back in an hour, see if it came up with anything. I'll come back in a day. Oh, what's this? Humans. That's interesting.
Right.
I mean, we have stuff that essentially does that. There's computers that
we have algorithms that like run and show us all the possible outcomes, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So maybe that's all we are, is an algorithm for aliens to see all the different possible outcomes, and they just want to know their best path to take.
So my question to you, let's say we are in a simulation.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Does that make any difference to you?
To me, no, I don't think it makes a difference, because I feel like there is no way of knowing either way, and even if there was a way of knowing, and you're gonna say we are in a simulation, I mean, what does that change? Like, It still doesn't give you the answers for why we're here or why we were created, and I think that's what people want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people say that the only, certains in life is tax and death, but I think really, it doesn't tell us the whole story of why we're here, but I think we're definitely here to nut and procreate. Like, that's just, if you took our brains away, we would still be able to do that.
That's what he says in the book. We're just here to pass on. I'm here to pass on myself.
Yeah.
You're here to pass on yourself.
And I mean, maybe we're here to do other stuff too, but
we don't know.
For certain, we're here to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I kind of agree. Like, if we, and this is, I guess this isn't, it's easy to think about it because I've never been hit with it, but like, I think the right way to think is if we are, it doesn't change anything. Like, if we are, all right, someone comes and tells the whole universe, somehow translates to all of us that we are, and then just poof, leaves. Nothing's changed. Like, okay, yes, something's changed. I can't say nothing's changed, but all right, we know we're in a simulation, but what can we do? They ain't like the program's not changing. We're still gonna die. So it's like, why not just keep doing what you're gonna do? That doesn't make your life any more meaningful or meaningless. Like I've talked about it before, you give life meaning.
Yeah.
So like, you can either let that take away meaning or just continue to not care and create your own meaning.
Yeah. So I mean, like, how do we, like, I don't know if this is what you were getting to, like, does it mean anything if we're simulated or not? Like, I think what changes would be our morality, right? Like,
How so?
I mean, I don't know if this is what you were getting at, like saying that if we are in this simulation where everything is fake and there necessarily isn't meaning, then like, would you be a badass and go thug on some people and
do whatever you want?
yeah, and I mean, I think that still wouldn't change for a lot of people, because I don't know, I'm just trying to think like how like, without anybody telling us, how do we know killing somebody is wrong?
Without anybody telling us, how do we know?
You know,
you don't.
Like we didn't know that the first human being to murder another human being didn't know that. Like, but clearly he felt bad about it, or something was telling him it was wrong, and so he had to make up an idea, or some humans made up an idea that God told them that Cain wasn't supposed to kill Abel, and that's a sin. Like,
yeah.
So I think it goes down to just naturally we can be certain we're here to regenerate, right? So it would be unnatural to kill an offspring.
Yeah, but I think you're looking at it. We're here to procreate, right? But so you're almost saying like, if I killed someone, I would be defying that because I'm killing like a creation, right? But the thing is, we're not.
Well, I'm saying, is that how all bad and good comes from? Like, what's natural and unnatural? Like, the natural order of things? Because, I mean, if you look at it like that, if you're going to say, well, natural things are good, unnatural things are bad, and natural things are to reproduce, and unnatural things would be to kill those reproductions, that's the bad.
Well, no, you want to reproduce, right? But not reproduce as a whole. You want to reproduce for yourself.
Right.
Where I want to reproduce for myself.
Right.
Right? So killing, let's say there's two of us and there's one female.
Right. One of us has to die.
One of us has to die.
Right.
Exactly. I'm either going to kill you and I'm going to pass on my genes. You're going to kill me and pass on your genes. Or we both pass on, we both, like,
Yeah.
But that's not how it works. That's like that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, where like there's competition and I only want to pass on my genes. So in that sense, killing is the right thing.
It's natural then, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I agree. I agree completely. I think like.
So I mean, how like, if killing in that sense seems natural, like, how do we know killing is wrong?
Because we're above that now. We have a self. We can think and we can feel. And I can feel towards you. And someone else can feel towards you. And if I feel towards you and someone else feels towards you, but I kill you, then I'm impeding on that. And that's like, I feel like that is where, I think that's the point where he says consciousness. Like, that's what separates us. Because other animals kill each other all the time for survival, and it's natural. We
Yeah.
don't look at like two bears fighting in the wild for survival. At like obviously it's a marvel, but it's natural.
Right.
We don't say, "Oh, they should stop that," or like you name it, deers going at each other.
Right.
Deers. I just said deers. Deer. But because they can't think, they don't know any better. But us, we know better. So I think that's how we got to that point. Because like for every other animal, it's natural, but for us, it's unnatural. Well, what separates us from every other animal? Our consciousness and our ability to think about things.
Yeah. It's just too much for me, man.
Yeah, this is the stuff that makes you feel like if you start thinking about this will make you feel like a girl on her period. You just go, well, what the fuck is the use to end it? But you got to persevere.
But it's I think a lot of it, right? It's got to be like, how many times do you ask yourself like, or you're just so surprised, like, oh my god, it's dark at 5 o'clock. Like, I think that's the thing. You start questioning that, like, why is it so dark? Like,
Instead of just going.
and then you're like, what's going on? Like, and then all of a sudden you're questioning everything about yourself. Like,
and you're down.
yeah.
Where you or social media too. That'll get you down. Which is what like you don't. That's what. I'm mad props to you because you only have Snapchat, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? Like, I think, and I don't know. It seems like, especially the last month or something, like, it's definitely, I feel really disconnected for like the first time.
From what?
Like, everyone and everything, like, and I mean, I've had plenty of times where, like, I'm just on my own doing my own thing, and I didn't necessarily feel disconnected, but I think some of it's like the classes like I'm taking now, they really put an emphasis on social media and everything, and maybe that's where the disconnect is coming from. I feel like, not that I'm missing out, but I'm unaware, and that's not a good feeling, to be unaware.
I don't think so. I don't think I can see how you feel that way. But I really think that's a false.
I don't want to, like, I don't have any desire to be on social media still, because I think a lot of it's just nonsense, like, But
I will tell you, a lot.
Yeah, so
of it is
I mean,
nonsense.
and that's a whole nother thing. We don't have to go into like why social media is so bad, but it's still social, and I am like socially disconnected in that way. Like,
See, the thing is though, I think you're not thinking about. It's social, right? But does me putting up a perfect picture of myself in a perfect setting, that's me being social, yes. But that's a lie. Because it's not like people, I think what you're forgetting is that like people live on social media through just a facade. The majority of them, the vast majority, just live in this facade of presenting something that they're not.
right.
So it almost sounds like you're missing that presentation, but the present, like, it's not.
Well,
Like I think I have all, like, I have Facebook, I have Twitter, I have Instagram, I have Snapchat, and honestly, I might be like I use Twitter and Instagram. I'd probably 60-40, and like 60 Snapchat and 40 Instagram. And like you could like, we all know how much you can use. Like, you can only really use Snapchat so much. Like, I don't use either. So I've come down from using them,
right.
like, as much as I used to, because like they're really, you just like, so you said you're being social. Today, for the first time in my life, I was like, wow. So like I really got why it can be a good thing because I was like my buddy sent me a hilarious Snapchat. Shout out to Brandon, and I'm like, I haven't seen this kid in months, but I grew up with him in elementary school. We went to high school together, good friends, and then you graduate from high school and everyone knows things happen. But I was sitting there and I'm like, yeah, but like I can still talk to him like we're sitting at the lunch table in high school,
Right.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? You're able to do, like, you have your Snapchat which is able to do that.
It's not like, because I mean, that whole like front and facade thing that you were talking about, like that's absolutely true, and that's one of the things I was saying, like, everybody knows that's bad, or I hope everybody knows that. But,
They don't.
Yeah. So, I guess more of what I meant is like the social cues and the small things, like the inside jokes and just knowing what's going on.
Okay.
Like I'm not
Okay.
connected in that way.
I see exactly what
And
you're saying.
I mean, because like I said, I have no desire to go on these things specifically for those reasons. I don't need to put up these pictures and see what everybody else is doing. But
I see what you're saying, but
Yeah.
you can't. You're not even.
there's this thing.
You're not
like
even
someone said this thing like a thirsty trap the other day, and I had like no fucking idea what they were talking about, and they had to explain it to me because it's something that only exists on social media.
Yeah. I see
So-
what you're saying. I know I'm just gonna say this, and like you're gonna take it however you take it, but like being on social media, it can change that, but it doesn't necessarily. I call myself one of the most basic people because like I don't care to get involved in that. Essentially the only reason I'm on social media now is Snapchat and Instagram. Snapchat to be in touch with my friends. I like seeing what people are doing. I do genuinely like to see what people are up to, and that's cool. And Snapchat is like, it can also have that facade, but I think it's the most revealing out of all of them. Instagram though, the only reason I go on Instagram essentially is for like nothing, I guess, that most people like. I go on for motivation. I go on like to laugh every now and then, but that's about it. Like there's still like you're saying, there's people bring up stuff all the time that I'm like, dude, you got to explain that. Like you can ask my buddies, like Michael tell you, like I'm pretty basic and I'm on social media.
Right.
And I feel like part of it too is what's going to cause this is who you're interacting with. If you're interacting with people that put a lot of emphasis and put a lot of stock into social media, you're going to feel like dick when they're talking about it.
Yeah.
But if you're putting yourself around people who know that the majority of that can be BS and that it's a lot of it is fallacies and a lot of it is illusions, then you'll be happier. Oh, these people are like me, they're just as happy, if not they're happier than people that are on. So if you're hanging around with people that are on it, I can see, which I think could be like where like the cause of it,
and that's what it is. It must be that, because I mean I'm in a class that's emphasizing social media, and everybody in that class,
yeah, so you feel
on
like
top of it.
you're an outsider.
Yeah. But I mean, to be fair too, like I mean, it's hard to say that, especially our generation is going to be the largest on Earth soon, and the ones under us are only gonna be likely to use social media even more than we do, so it's coming to this point, like I mean I will be left out, like or people who don't use it will be left out, and I'm not even sure like that's a bad thing, like left out from what.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That. Yeah. I wish everyone could just see your expression, just like what? I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, but like it's just, it was weird to me because it's just like in this last month, it's the first time ever I'm feeling this way, and I can't. It's kind of a shitty feeling.
I see what you're saying. Being left out sucks.
It's kind of like
it doesn't matter if it's social media, if it's sports, if it's conversation. If you're left out of something, it sucks.
Yeah.
and you're left at, like, you're
Yeah,
not
and
part of it.
I mean it's like what we were talking about in the beginning with having something to compare it to, like a healthy lifestyle to an unhealthy lifestyle. Like I've never had this feeling of being left out, and I've just always liked to be informed about things and aware, even if I'm not into something or agree with it, I like to be aware of it.
Yeah, you
And
spectate.
yeah,
I don't necessarily.
and so now I feel left out, and I've never had that feeling to compare it to before, and it almost makes it feel like really shitty. Like
I'm trying to think of how it could be resolved. How that could.
I mean, it's gonna be resolved once this class is over, and I don't have to like
You don't know
deal
that
with that
though.
shit anymore.
You don't know that.
Yeah.
I today though, like, I think said this before and I'll say it again. Anything that's like anything that's not human, it is neither good nor, like, I don't even know if humans are good nor bad, but we'll leave that for another day. Any like any not any I'm drawing a blank on a really basic word. Anything is neither good nor bad. It's how we impose our. It's humans that make things good or bad, right? A gun could be a great thing if you need to survive and you need to get food, because you're going to shoot a deer that's 30 yards away that without that gun or anything else you probably wouldn't be able to get.
Right.
But on the other end of the spectrum, if I shoot you in the face, that's
a very bad thing.
It's not. Yeah, that's a bad thing. Well, ignoring the argument we just made a couple
right.
minutes,
How would we know?
That's a bad thing. So social media is the same. Like, and I've had this conversation. It's the same way. And I think if you do go into it, or I don't like, it's hard to look at it that way when you're not in it. But like today in class, I had a class, right? And we had a quiz, and the quizzes are at the beginning of class, and they take up 15 minutes, and then 35 minutes of lecture. Show up, take the quiz. I look around, and about half the class for the rest of the class, not half, a quarter of the class is on their phones.
Yeah.
For the whole class. Like, these kids sitting next to me took the quiz, and as soon as it was handed in, and they had that lenience, boom, their phone was out.
Right.
And they face was in that thing the whole time. And I sit here and I'm thinking, you were going to college. You were paying how many thousands of dollars to be in this classroom right now? Like,
right.
you were paying for this. But you would rather be off in La La Land. Listen, if you want to do that, drop out of college and go on your phone. It's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So, but if I want to spread a good message, if I want to be altruistic, if I want to start a good movement, that can be done on social media too. So it needs to be taken and handled the right way. And depending on how you handle it, it's going to be dependent. Like, it sounds like a lot of the kids in the class might be like, you're just talking about it in general, and they're probably talking about the positives of it. But like, you're not hearing the negatives.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
So like, you got to keep that in mind too. I was just amazed. I was honestly stunned. Like, these kids literally had their face.
Oh, and I mean, like, especially with not having social media, I can't say how many times, you're, and that's so much of why, or maybe it's a part of the reason why, that I just don't enjoy hanging out with people anymore, because when you do, like, it's not even sometimes now, it's all the time. Like, people are just on their phones when they're hanging out with other people. Like,
no, I agree. Over the summer, there was more.
Don't you have something interesting to say? Like,
yeah,
I'm
like I said, I don't know if it's because of my parents, if it's I don't think it's that. for other reasons, but I don't know why it is that I don't involve myself nearly as much, but like over the past year, I can tell you 2 or 3 specific instances where I was hanging out with 3 or 4 people, and I literally sat in silence for 20 minutes just while I'm watching them all on their phone.
Yeah.
I swear. And
Yeah.
and it didn't give me the urge to go on.
Right.
I literally sat there and went, "Okay, I'm going to see how long it takes till one of these idiots looks up and realizes how ridiculous this is."
Yeah.
And I just sat there.
Yeah, and I'd agree. It's usually about 20 minutes.
You're right. Exactly. 20 minutes until they look up. And probably the only reason it's that is because they realize that you're not.
Yeah.
Where if you were on it, they would just continue doing it anyway.
Right.
And it's absolutely zonkers.
Right.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And I can't, like, you can't begin to yell at people. You know, I guess you can't. Or you, like, I always want to take my phone out and take a picture, but that immediately makes me hypocritical, I feel.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, if I'm sitting with 4 people and they're all on their phones, and all of a sudden I take my phone out and go, look at these idiots on their phones, I'm on my phone to do that.
Yeah, right.
But, like, it's for, you know, it's,
yeah.
but I just, like, that's how it's bad. It needs to be used as a tool, not as just, like, a drug or something. Like, when you're with people, you should be conversing. Right. I shouldn't be sitting in a room with 3 other guys and they're all just sitting on their phones for 20 minutes when we could be talking about ideas and expand, like we're talking about, like, expanding with the self,
right,
diving into stuff, where instead you just would rather have someone else telling you something, someone else showing you their or whatever,
looking at your friend's gym session or what they ate that day, or
I a really good quote I heard yesterday in an interview. They were talking about something kind of similar, and the guy was talking about, we had this conversation, waking up and being, like, first thing checking your phone, and he said, the quote, I still remember, he goes, I could wake up and my first thought of the day isn't an original thought, it's someone else's.
Right.
Like, if you wake up still fuzzy-eyed, like, not, you know, you're not going yet, it's been 20 minutes, so you brush I don't even know, and then you check your phone, you didn't have an original thought.
Right.
That was yours. Your first input is from somebody else.
Yeah.
And that is really dangerous,
Right.
I think. That's really
super
dangerous.
bad. And I think, like, you know, a big like part of that is we all use our cell phones as alarms now. So it's so easy to pick your phone up the first thing in the morning and just stay on it and lounge around in bed.
It takes... I thought that was going to be a problem when I started doing it. And it could just be me, but I thought, like I said, I thought it was going to be a problem, but that takes very little willpower, at least for me, because I still use my phone as my alarm. But today, actually, I don't even know why I know today. It's convenient that we're talking about it, but it took me 3 hours from the time I woke up to go on Snapchat. It took me 3 hours. Because, like, I'm conscious of that. Like, yeah. I want to wake up, and I want to wake myself up, and I want to make sure I have a good head going forward for the day. I don't want to be hindered by what people want to say. And 2, as soon as you dive into it, it's a loop. As soon as you get that first Snapchat, it's like, you're like, oh, I wonder what they're up to now.
Right.
So then, like, you can see how it follows like that.
Right.
But, like, I think just there's, like, so many just little things you can do to start making it better. I mean, if you don't want to make it better, that's your prerogative. But, like, it's almost like anti-social media now. Like, just make it a thing. I don't know. Make it a point to wake up and not go on your phone it doesn't have to be 3 hours. That was just me. Yeah. But make it a point to not go on your phone for an hour. Or make it a point, because there's apps now that you can monitor how much you're on social media. Make it a point, if you're at 20 hours a week, just bump it down to 18. Like, the incremental things, because then it's time. Right?
Right.
Social media is time. I'm trading time to scroll through Instagram for time that I could be doing other things.
Right.
So then you have to, like, there's a million things you could be doing that are more valuable.
And I guess, like, I mean, some of it too is people just, you know, they would do anything to avoid those awkward occasions, like being in an elevator with someone else for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like half the time I'm not even sure people are on their social media. I think they're just opening and closing apps on their phone, like like to make it look like they're doing something on there. You know, and like,
Well, that's because you don't go on it. So you're like, what could you possibly be doing on there?
yeah.
But I think like for me, the left out that you're kind of talking about, I don't know if I rarely get it, and if I do, it's minimal. But it's more of like I hold that as, to me, that's a glass half full, where I'm like, I like the majority of people couldn't say that they spend as limited time on their phones. I'm not trying to be right. I'm just saying.
Right.
Like, and to me, it's like, yeah, I'm left out, but that's something I want to be left out of.
Yeah, and I like being left out of it. I don't like. I think what's just catching me up is like I'm not informed on that certain thing, and you know.
You just gotta say, does it matter?
Yeah, you know, and it's like, what is it like? It kind of was like I feel like, and a lot of it could change with age and like whatever, like you know, change in interests and stuff. But I just used to be a more social, outgoing person, and I don't know if, you know, because I'm not in social media or because everybody else is, that they're not as social off of their phones, that you know, I'm not that way either. Like,
that's probably what it is. Like, because if you, like, what makes it social? So, let's use Instagram as an example. You go on Instagram, you know how Instagram works, right? You know, your girlfriend has. Oh, you don't?
no. I mean, as far as I know, it's just a bunch of pictures.
Okay, yeah, pictures and videos. Yeah, that's all it is.
Okay.
So, we'll use this, and we'll go to, like, I go on Instagram and I'm just scrolling through people's photos. If I'm just scrolling, am I being social?
Yeah, not really, right?
Not really. Okay, so if
But I mean, I guess you could share that picture with somebody else.
Yeah, so let's go up the next level. Let's say I like a photo. Like, I see a photo you posted, and I hit it, and it gives you a notification that I liked it. That's social. But how social?
Yeah.
And then the next one up, right, is what you're saying. You share a photo with a third party. That's even more social, but how still? So,
I mean, I used to say hi to strangers and get a hi back. Now you kind of get like a crazy, bizarre
anymore.
look,
dude.
And that was fucking what, 5 years or 10 years ago? Like, I mean,
I don't know if that's a city thing. It could be a city thing.
Could be a city thing, but
dude, I go on runs. And back home when I run, I look at everyone passing and I smile and wave.
Yeah.
In Philadelphia, not happening. They're not even looking at you. And I'm telling you this because, like, I think of it. I'm like, every person I pass. Yeah. Now it's like all right, somebody has to smile and wave.
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
And the usual happened, I'm running, I'll make eye contact with them 10 yards out now. Like, that's far.
Yeah.
For normal running. But now I'm like, I just know they're not going to look. So I'm looking at them for 10 yards, and they might look at me at 5 yards. And, like, before I even get time to smile and interact and wave, they, like, make eye contact and just look right back down. That's not right.
Yeah.
That's not human.
I don't know. Is it?
Did we do that thousands of years ago?
No, but I mean, that's just that's the lag, man. That's the lag we were talking about, right?
That's lag.
I don't know. It's weird. Like, we've somehow become more connected and social globally, maybe. but we lost that lag,
personally.
right? That lag has made us not able to converse with the person in the room with us anymore.
I don't know. That's bleak.
It's really weird. Like, it's weird that we're connected. You know what I mean? It's almost a precursor to this simulation thing. We're already connected on the internet more than we are
Yeah.
in reality.
I see that. Yeah, and it's kind of like if I'm messaging my friend all day and sending pictures back and forth on Instagram, I'm connected to him. I still never see him.
Well, and like think about it. Like people used to have pen pals, right? Like,
Oh,
do you know what a pen pal is?
yeah. I
yeah.
had a pen pal.
Yeah. So I mean,
Middle school.
yeah. I remember that was like a class project we did in elementary school or something. Like
Yeah.
we had pen pals with someone from a different school, but but I mean, like no.
That was the start of it, bro.
Right.
That was the start of social media.
Right. And so, but I mean, you would if you heard about that a while ago, you'd be like, dude, you're probably a little weird, a little bit of a loner. You're friends with someone you never even see. And
But now it's typical.
that's typical now, right? Like
I think the flaw with it, even though you're being social, you're not it's a third party interaction. I'm not connecting directly with you. And also, so then that takes away a lot of things. It takes away social cues. I hate texting. Like, texting's good to, meet me here, or I'm lost, or this and that. But I don't want to text you all day.
right.
That's part of the struggles of having a girlfriend is
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to text somebody all day.
Yeah.
Part of the reason is, one, I have other stuff to do. But two is texting is so flawed. So flawed. Like, I can say one thing to you that I mean it in one way and you can interpret it in a completely different way. And that's so flawed. Like, I want to be able, conversation is meant to interact.
Right.
You and I talking here, I'm taking cues from you. I'm everything about it, and you're taking cues from me.
Right.
And there's certain things that makes you react. Also, I have, you react in the moment, which I think there's value to, where I can send a text message and I could take 5 minutes to respond, or I could take 5 hours. But
Right.
I could think about, I could have thought about it for 4 minutes and 59 seconds really thought hard about what I was going to say and send it in 5 minutes. Or in 5 hours, I could just respond something willy-nilly. And that's flawed too, because then you break, that chain is broken of communication. So that's why it's I don't like it like that. It shouldn't be like that. You should be able to take cues from someone, and you should be able to interact and give and take and learn. Where is this person looking? What's their body language saying? What are their mannerisms saying? Where it's just that's gonna probably keep getting less and less when we can do replace that online.
Yeah. I think too, another issue that I'm having with it is starting to realize that nothing is going to stop the social media from happening or expanding or getting bigger, right? So I'm only that's used in work a lot now, and it's going to be more integrated into our lives, and I'm only setting myself back by not getting on the boat with it.
You're probably
you have to it's this thing with
it's gonna be unavoidable.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I definitely think you're right, but
I mean, imagine our parents saying nah, I'm never going on the internet. That shit's crazy. And now if they didn't, they don't have a job anymore.
Yeah,
right?
I know. I agree.
If they didn't learn that, and
see, but that's where you're looking at it though in the right sense. You're looking at it as a tool,
right,
to get to further.
And maybe that's what I need to get on board with is
yeah,
giving into it Like,
But don't let it swallow
right. But I get so scared, especially, I mean, I'm you know, going to school for business analytics is part of what I'm going to school for. And, you know, it's really easy to understand that every single piece of information you put on the internet is like being collected and used.
Mm-hmm.
And that just makes me really uncomfortable. I don't know why. It's like, it's probably like something you just need to get over. It's a phobia or whatever. But
When you say collect and use, you mean like you like big someone's Big Brother's watching or something like that? Not necessarily, just someone.
it used to be more like, oh, big brother's watching, but now it's just kind of annoying. Like,
So my question to
like these corporations are collecting that data and figuring out how to become more profitable and collect even more data, and then they could, right? And then it's not like they're not collecting that data and understanding how you respond to different kinds of marketing, and you respond better to certain kinds of marketing than other kinds of marketing, so they'll be able to market directly towards you. And that, you know, seeing how easily people like hop on the boat with these trends and this social media shit, like, I mean, you could see a commercial and you're like, oh, people are definitely fucking sold on that, like they got them. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's a really like sickening, like truly sickening feeling when you like are talking to someone and hearing them say that they want something or why they want it, and like you actually don't want that. Like, somebody told you you wanted it.
No, I agree. That is probably my biggest gripe with social media, because I don't think that's right. Listen, it's convenient for me to be on my iPhone looking at whatever, jeans, and then I go on my laptop 2 minutes later and an ad pops up for those same exact jeans. That is convenient, yes. But me personally, and I am in a probably small percentage that thinks this way, I do not want that. I'm going to, like, kind of like you're saying, it goes from me looking at something I want to 2 minutes later someone telling me what I want.
Right.
And I know what I want. I don't need you to tell me what I want. So that is probably my biggest gripe, if not my, like, with social media too. But it's like, there's nothing I'm going to do. There's nothing I'm going to do about it. And organizations are doing, like you said, they're doing it. The millions and millions and millions of data points that are coming in, it's going to happen.
Right.
It's just going to happen. So you just accept it.
It's something. That's something though. Like, I feel like I do seriously need to get over it. Like, need to
and get over feeling left out, or get into social media.
Kind of like get into it.
I think you're at a strong point to come into it, because in my opinion, obviously, you're thinking about it in all the right ways. You know what I mean? You know that it has, know what to look for that's bad, and you know how it can be used for good. You know that in the every day that passes, it's just going to be more ingrained in our lives, and it's just going to be unavoidable at some point. So yeah, in that way, maybe you should get on it. But like you said, like what I'm saying, you know what traps there are, and you know, like you.
But I mean, like that's the thing. Like, I think even if I made an account, like, it would be kind of bizarre because I wouldn't ever wind up using it. I'm not gonna sit there and post my thoughts on there. I'm not gonna like. I don't know, and I think a lot of it is just like this comfort thing, getting used to it, like. Because I mean, I've had a Facebook. You know, I had a Facebook, and I put every weekend we went to a different party, and like 40 pictures went up. You know,
Tony knows where to party,
right? Man. Like so I mean, I did that, and now I'm just like,
No, there's no.
well, I don't want to put those pictures up anymore.
You don't have to. It doesn't work like that. Like you make it what you want to make it. Because me personally, like I don't post a lot. I'm almost there more to, like I said, I want to be motivated. If I can go online and look at, like, if I'm not motivated to work out and I can go online and look at someone busting ass working out and I go, oh shit, like yeah, I need to get on that. Then that is like, that's the motivation. That's what I use it for. I also use it because, listen, I'll say it, like, I'm not perfect. Life sucks sometimes and life's great sometimes. And like I I will admit, like, I only post like most people do. I post what people want to see, but I post it because I feel I almost I take that back. I don't post it like I don't post what people want to see. I post what I want to put out there.
Right.
If that, like, obviously, but I'm saying, like, I post it because I enjoy it.
Right.
I don't really post things because I want.
Well, and that's what part of what I'm saying is, like, I guess I used to enjoy sharing that stuff. I don't enjoy it anymore.
But okay, yeah. So what I'm saying though, like, I don't, and it's come down to I don't post a lot
Yeah.
because, like, it's like, I'm not saying there's not stuff I enjoy, but there's, it's like what am I gonna post? I'll
Yeah.
post about the podcast. Like, I want people to know about that. I'd love for people to listen, but it's like, I don't, like, people don't need to know every single thing you're doing.
Right.
People don't, and in the end, do people care? Like,
I don't know. I wonder is that why is that why social media is so popular? Because, like, I know, especially for our generation, like there's a couple of these like hypotheses that we're really fucked up because our parents told us we were so good and special, and like then like we find out we're not like that special, and we still have to work like everybody else, you know. But if we're on social media and people are looking at our page and our pictures and our posts, like, that kind of gives us that assurance that we are special and people do have an interest in our lives. Like,
I think it's hard. I can really only speak for myself on this, and it that's hard too, because I know when it comes to the way I look at social media, the way I use social media, and the way I feel about it, I'm in, like, such a small percentage of people. Like, I
Yeah.
think so differently than everyone else, and to me, it's like what you're saying about feeling special. Like, when I put something up, it's like there is something in me that wants to get the most likes I can get out of it, right?
right.
But very minimal. Like, it's literally like I created this thing, whether it's a photo, whether it's a video, whether it's a photo someone took of me doing something I love, and, like, it's just like that's kind of what it's used for. And, like, in terms of feeling special, like, social media, you can't, like, I think that's a trap, is looking to that to feel special. We're like,
Yeah.
you're all like, and doing what you love is special, right? So, like, I can post a picture of a dirt bike, of me dirt biking something really badass that I get millions of likes on. And I'm like, wow, I feel special. But there's no reason for that. I could have not posted it all and, like, done that badass thing without anyone having to see it and still felt special without anyone's input.
Right.
So I think that's like kind of one of the pitfalls
Yeah.
to it too. I don't know.
I mean, it's got to be too, like, it's got to be like one of the things that's making me feel disconnected is just that itself. I'm away from my friends at home, so I'm not gonna, like, be texting all of them all the time or have a phone call with all of them all the time. I don't see them a lot, So if you do have social media, you're still able to keep connect with them.
That is where, like I said earlier, that's where it's so valuable.
Yeah.
Like, you could see someone for a couple years. I have friends I haven't seen for a couple years, but, like, there's no doubt in my mind when we see each other, it'll be like that.
Right.
Like, you just hop right back on where you left off. and what you're saying. I love being able to see, what they're up. And like for me, I genuinely care. Like I want to see what people are doing to an extent. Listen, if you're posting Snapchats and your Snapchat story is like 6 minutes long, nobody wants to see that. And that
Yeah.
ain't just me. Nobody wants to see that nonsense. But like I like seeing it. I like seeing like like you're saying, exactly what you're saying. I like seeing friends posting stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it's great for. So like I think using it that way is how it should be used and how Facebook and all that was originally conceived to be. So I think that's a good approach. I think think it's definitely a decision to be made of what you want to do. It'll be interesting going forward to see.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Yeah.
doubt I'll act on it.
Well, we talked it out. We got a little insight about it.
Yeah.
Somewhere to start.
Yeah.
But we've been at it now for 2 hours, I think.
All right.
1 hour and 55 minutes, dude.
That's pretty good.
We killed it.
Not bad for the first time.
Not bad at all.
Glad I got the season premiere.
Season opener.
So it's kind of a lot of pressure, but
He killed it. 2 hours, dude.
you have a lot of content to work with.
It's just my brain. I gotta get this shit out. Otherwise, I would go crazy.
Well, I'll definitely come back on. So,
I'd love to have you on again, my man. I appreciate it.
all right.
And to all you hooligans listening, much love. Do your thing. Peace out.
Peace.